Hi, my name is Ollie Cooperwood. I am the Public Affairs Officer for the Department of the Navy's Office of Small Business Programs. I'm here with Mr. Bob Smith. Mr. Smith is the Navy's Director, Department of the Navy's Director for SBIR and STTR, which stands for Small Business Innovation Research and Small Business Technology Transfer. Mr. Smith will go over an overview of the program. He'll talk about some of the phases. He'll talk about small business opportunities, and then we'll look at some of your questions and we'll answer them as we go along. Now, please keep in mind that we won't be able to solve world hunger with this podcast, or with this broadcast, but we'll get into the questions that we can answer. Please feel free to leave your questions here on our on the comment section, and we'll get back to them within a week's time frame. We'll answer them the best way we can, or we'll point you in the right direction. So without further ado, Mr. Smith, can you give us some insight about your role as a director of the Department of the Navy's SBIR and STTR programs?
I oversee 8 commands executing the SBIR STTR program. Both programs created by Congress that directs 3% of the federal R&D budget. If you've got an agency that has more than $100 million in R&D, that at least 3.2% of that goes to small businesses. So my office, and our acquisition commands all work with small businesses throughout America that have those technical solutions to our tough technical challenges. Be it from aircraft carriers, not the whole ship, but maybe a component on that ship within the system that's on the ship. But we start with that, and time again, the innovation and ingenuity of small business in America have come forward to solve Navy problems. Okay, the program itself is budgeted normally at about $450 to $470 million a year, going into multiple categories. We break them into 3 phases. Phase 1 is the initial proof of concept, usually about a 6-month period. You'll find that can be funded up to $225,000. If that's successful and we want to move forward, and you get selected for what we call a phase 2, which can be up to $1.5 million. After phase 2, there are going to be follow-on phase 2s that gets a little complicated. And then there's a thing called phase 3, which is anybody else's funding other than SBIR. And that's how we sort of track our success as we help you commercialize your technology and either find the Navy or other sister services or your customers, or you may find, in many cases, you'll find dual use, and there'll be commercial markets for your technologies. So
Okay.
go out there.
So a question, you said Congress mandated this. Now, what was the need? You talk about tough naval challenges. What are the challenges that you talk about?
Those challenges run the gamut. I like to say from boots to boats to dolphins to donuts. So everything the Navy can have and needs and uses. One of your greatest resources, I think, really is if you go to navysbir.com, Navy SBIR.com. That's our website. You'll get all the information. You can see what we're interested in. We actually have a navysbirsearch.com link, which allows you to see what we've done previously in the program, and you can start to see whether or not does my technology address a Navy challenge.
Okay, very well. So you explained the 3 phases of this. Now, there's always a question that comes up about the transition between phase 2 and 3. I've heard people call it the valley of death. Now, what's your insight on that?
It's
and the best way to navigate that, I'm sorry.
Well, the best way to navigate really is to please your customers. So first off, you got to realize not everything will be successful. It's research. You're taking on a technical approach to a challenge that we haven't been able to solve today. That being said, so we actually plan for failure, that not all research will be successful, because we're gonna push the envelope and hopefully really knock them out of the park. And about 50% of the time that does happen. What is a challenge sometimes is aligning the timing of your research with that acquisition program they're ready to accept that solution. How did their budget fare over the last couple of years? Is it still a priority within the Navy? Things change. And as you're doing research, you may find that what's something the Navy needed today maybe something they still need, but it's no longer as high a priority as it was yesterday.
Okay. So finding that information, the entry points.
That really works with, first is putting in a good phase one proposal, addressing what the Navy wants, becoming a customer. At that point, working very closely with what we call the technical point of contact, your TPOC, to ensure that they're happy and you both understand where are you progressing with your research, where are our opportunities for insertion and commercialization, where do we need to adjust, adapt the research approach, or be ready that maybe there will be a period where we've got to wait and either wait for the funding to catch up or the research to progress, or maybe it's the other part of the program you've got to integrate into. So there's always a lot of moving parts. The key to every success is everybody talking to each other early on. Because almost in any case, even if there's a challenge, if we're working on it and aware of it at the beginning, we can usually find a way to mitigate that challenge. So we're not running up against the wall at the end.
Right. So I'm a small business, and so my point is going to the small business professional, going to the SBIR, STTR website, so I've got something the Navy needs. I think I do. I saw what they asked for. I'm a patriot. I want to do that. Where am I starting?
A couple of different ways. One is look at the website. We do have points of contacts for our commands as to, here we go. What I'll tell you, though, is it's easy. There's two conversations you can have. You can come to me and say, here's my technology. And we get that pregnant pause while you expect me to tell you where to put it. In the sense, where do you think this is going to work? Versus, I've looked at your website. I've looked at previous topics. I believe I have the technical solution to your problem. Here's my approach to your problem. That's going to go a lot further. Would you go to a customer and say, here you go, and let them figure it out? Or are you going to help them, guide them along? And I understand it's exceedingly difficult. The Navy is a huge, large organization. What do I need? So talking with those technical points of contact will at least start the conversation.
Right.
And then you can start to understand what they're really looking for, or did they really mean. I always like to tell people, what I meant to say is not what you think you heard, and we're always never quite that good as communicators.
Right.
I have exceptional engineers and scientists in the Navy. Many of them went to engineering school. They didn't go get a master's in communication.
Okay. So now the other question I have here is your outreach events. You have certain events that, and I'd like you to talk about them, because a lot of people don't put the money into, a lot of small businesses are lean. They say, well, we don't have the money to get to these outreach events. What am I going to get out of it? If I go to a FST, if I go to a catapult, what am I looking to do there? What am I looking to leverage?
That's always a great question, is where should you invest your money? I would say the first thing is do your homework, in instance, going to the website. And I realize that seems to be the trite and go-to answers, but it's a good place to start. And from there, you can make some connections. Are you ready to go to a conference? I would say not. First off, within your local community, see your small business development professionals. Go see the SBA. There's lots of resources there to help you move along. And it's going to be a journey. It's going to take time. It doesn't happen overnight. And work from that avenue. And have the conversation. But I got to tell you, doing a little bit of homework sure beats coming in cold calling and the cold call approach. Or, hey, I have your solution. My solution to what?
Right.
So you start the conversation. I would say, and in the case of STP, you'll see it on the website. It's an acronym, and we have lots of those. It stands for SBIR STTR Transition Program. And what the Navy offers for every Phase 2 awardee, so you've got to have been selected for Phase 1.
Right.
Exceedingly difficult. It's usually 1 out of 15, 1 out of 10 proposals get selected. You get to your Phase 1, and about 50% of those get to Phase 2. Those awardees are invited to the Transition Assistance Program, where we help you start thinking about, how do I commercialize? How do I scale up? What do I do if I'm successful at the end of my 2-year Phase 2 effort, and my prototype works? It's exactly what the Navy wants. And if the Navy says, I need 100 of those next month, 1,000 by the end of the year.
Right.
It helps you think through those. We won't give you the answers. We just say there's lots of questions that need to be answered or considered as you move along. Because not only are you doing the research, in many cases, you probably started as a 2-person company,
Mm-hmm.
2 ladies in a garage. So from a phase 1 to phase 3 is usually a 5 to 7 year proposition.
Right.
That's 5 to 7 years to develop the technology and also grow your company.
Right.
So when we finally say we want what you have and we want lots of them, you're ready to produce, because a good technical solution that you can't deliver is still a failure.
Right. So in our talking points for small business, we always talk about agility, flexibility, innovative solutions. And a lot of people think, oh, that's just some big program office. It's a big, large company. But that's small business a lot in many respects. And I assume that it fits into what some of those tough naval challenges. It doesn't have to be a large company. It's like you said, sometime in the garage, sometime. Go ahead.
We're looking all over for the answers.
Right.
And by having that conversation, we realized we're not the only folks with the answer. And there usually is more than one approach to solving the problem.
Mm-hmm.
We sometimes get narrowed down, and this is how we've always done it, versus if we step back and go, oh, if I'd only looked at it from a different angle,
mm-hmm.
if I'd considered this approach to it, and guess what? Science progresses.
Right.
What yesterday was impossible is doable today.
Right.
Okay.
Now, one more question I really have burning is need versus capability. And I hear this all the time. The work's there, but the small business isn't fit up enough to get it done necessarily. So what are their options there? I know SBIR, STTR are programs that allow that for that. What would you say in that respect, need versus capability? I mean, I guess that's some of the research, knowing what you can actually do based on what's out there, the requirement, I guess, meeting the requirement.
Well, that's part of the conversation. And you got to be, I always say, be careful between what kind of requirement you're talking about. Is it the big R requirement, I need to have an aircraft? Or is it a small R requirement, I need to be able to have the radio and that aircraft be able to communicate on this far of a distance.
Right.
Do that. And there's always more things the Navy want, because we want to outfit our warfighters with the best that's out there. We want them to be safe. We want them to come home. We want them to be better than the other folks.
Right.
So there's always one more thing we'd love to hand to them.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't buy it all. We don't have enough money for it.
Right.
So the best we can, as quickly as we can, is what we're going to do. So you've got to have that conversation to understand how important it really is. Another axiom I give is, there's nothing more important than something the other guy's got to pay for.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So when it's actually got to come out of your budget, sometimes, guess what? I can't do it all.
Right.
Okay. I want the mansion. I want the Tesla. I want the 6-month cruise.
Right.
I'll end up with a hamburger.
Right. Good. And last thing that I would have before we see if there are any questions out there, is there any things that you've seen come across? What prevalent issues that you want to address as it relates to the program? What are things you've seen that probably require you to make some clarification? Because sometimes people see things as not always as it is. I know that valley of death was one thing of those things that you explained, but anything else that you see?
What frustrates me is if you look at the SBIR process, when a solicitation is open, and we have 3 of those a year, and on the website you'll see the dates that are there. There's a period called the open period, which specifically allows you to talk to the person that wrote that topic. I.e., the topic is here's my demand signal for I need help on a technical problem. Hearing from companies that didn't avail themselves of the opportunity to talk to that person. And I always say is, who wouldn't want to talk to your customer?
Right.
Okay? Because that will help you hopefully understand a little better what they're really looking at and approaching. Or you can have the conversation and realize, here's the state of the art of this research discipline, whatever it may be, advanced materials to electronics. It's moved along. Okay. And have that conversation and start. And remember, everything comes down to, at the end of the day, it's still, if you look back, it was a personal relationship was developed over time.
All right. So I had a phase 2, and it didn't go into phase 3. How do I get back a new entry, new entry points, reconnecting? That's always, I hear that with small business. I had business and now I've got to try to get back into it. And the people who were there are not there anymore.
People move along, people retire,
Right.
the rest of it. Continuing to progress. One of the things I like to tell folks that get to phase one, even phase two, is having a conversation. Where do you see us going together? Where do you see my product going? Is there anyone else you would want to introduce me to? Yes, maybe say this is a capability that's going on ships, but maybe it has applicabilities to other platforms in the Navy. The other thing is, remember, is the Army has ships, and the Air Force has airplanes, and the Army has airplanes. So there's applicability across the services. So who are their counterparts in the other services? Who can they work with it? And sometimes stepping back and going, is there can my technology be used in a different application?
And commercial use too, right? So
well, one of our really great, iRobot started as a Navy SBIR company, doing robots for our explosive ordnance disposal folks. So the same thing, helping save sailors and soldiers and Marines, is now cleaning up in your living room.
Right. Very well. So just to recap, well, actually, we have a business. Can I partner with a non-small business? That's one of the questions that just came up.
Absolutely. The key is 51% of the work must be done by your company, your American company. So in many cases, actually, that's a good combination. Let's say your small company, you're going to do a component on one of our aircraft. So maybe I want to have a subcontract with the prime producer of that aircraft, say Lockheed Martin. That way you've actually kind of coordinated the transition to the folks that actually deliver the whole aircraft. So yes.
And please feel free to ask your questions as we try to wrap it up. We're so I want to recap then. So resource website. Is
good start. And it also has our phone numbers. Send us an email if you got a question. Give us a call if you got a question.
What's the website again for them?
NavySBIR.com.
Okay, very easy. Next question that came up. What is the SBIR program doing to attract non-traditional suppliers, non-traditional companies?
We're doing Facebook. We're out there reaching out to folks and working with them every day. I mean, you can't be much more non-traditional than one person graduating from college today going, I have an interesting idea. I want to move forward with it. How do I do it? And we start that journey together.
Right. And speaking of college, there is a university link there too, right, between SBIR. I forgot about to ask you about that.
Well, a lot of people go, well, what's the difference between SBIR and STTR? And the only difference is in STTR, you are required to partner with a research institution who will do at least 30% of the work. Okay.
It's pretty simple, yeah.
It's pretty simple. It's just, you have a partner. I tell you, your odds of getting an STTR are about 50% higher than an SBIR. Normally, we'll get about 15 proposals for each SBIR topic. We'll normally get 7 or 8 proposals for every STTR topic.
Got it. Okay.
It's all about, it's difficult. I'm a small business, and now you want me to team with someone else. Once again, it takes time to build that relationship. But those universities come, one, with incredible talented people. Two, a lot of experience working not only in the technical area, but also they also have resident business capabilities, legal capabilities. So they can, in many cases, they can be a great partner.
All right. Next question is, does progression to phase 2 rely on the advocacy of your TPOC in phase 1?
Absolutely. If you haven't pleased that customer, delivered the product, it's probably not going to go there.
It's pretty simple. Now, you'll be at, full disclosure, we have you at Gold Coast, an event that our office puts on, and you'll be participating in the Navy and Marine Corps labs with Mr. Bill Bray.
Yes.
Right. And so that all goes into it too, because a lot of things are happening in labs, a lot of, a lot of ingenuity, a lot of new things testing.
Well, that's another webinar, for one of lack of another term we'll have to get to, is the Navy Tech Transfer Program.
Right.
So just to understand, there are hundreds of federal laboratories that one can license you their technology development, and you can take it the last mile. It happens every day. And they also have facilities. So you don't need to build a test facility. You just need to go rent one with the Navy.
Right.
Okay.
And cheap plug, Gold Coast is August 7th through 8th this year in San Diego.
San Diego.
Right.
One of the other things you can see at the website is some of the upcoming events we're doing. If you also go to SBA, they have what they call the Small Business Administration Road Tours. So we're one city, one state a day, usually 4 or 5 of those at a period. So I think we're coming to town.
Right. Got one more question here. It says, how important is commercialization plan in the phase 1 proposal?
It's one of the evaluation criteria. So we're not going to tell you the weighting of the evaluation criteria, but I can tell you your technical approach is far most important. The second is your technical team.
Right.
And the third is the commercialization plan. I would say for the Navy, your commercialization plan is, please tell me how it's going to benefit the Navy, what program it's going to go to.
Right.
I, on behalf of the taxpayer, are about to spend money to solve a Navy problem. Secondary, I would love for you to commercialize it, but first I want to solve my Navy problem.
Right. Would you? So is it tailoring to the Navy, or are you making a product broad enough that is agile enough the Navy anybody can use?
No, we're focusing on Navy problems. It's great if other folks can use it. It's fantastic if it can be used by the nation. But we're focused on bringing, giving our sailors and Marines the best technical edge they can have.
Great. And last, something that you probably, can you explain some of the co-op kind of CRADA, what are these type of agreements?
Once again, I would send you to the Navy Tech Transfer website to look at CRADA, another acronym for Cooperative Research and Development Agreement. It's an agreement between you and, in our case, we'll talk Navy CRADA, a Navy laboratory, where no money will change hands, but we'll both work together and we'll agree on who's going to do what and what we're going to share as we both sort of co-develop.
Now, who owns the property and the IP on it?
You'll work that through in the agreement before you start as to what part of the intellectual property is whose when you do that.
Okay. Would you discuss ownership as a result of intellect? Well, we just talked about that.
You own your intellectual property. You actually have IP data rights for 5 years at the completion of your SBIR contract. So if you go from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3, that IP protection could last for 10, 20 years, 30 years.
Right. Can adding new capabilities to DON modeling simulation software lead to phase 2? Since there is only one software for each application, which is shareable to many users, so is there no need to mass production? So the question again is, adding new capabilities to DON modeling simulation software lead to phase 2 or phase 3? I'm sorry.
Well, you got to. So the phase 1, you're going to give me some code that's going to improve my software. Phase 2 is we're going to prove it out and it actually works. Next question is, okay, yeah, I've earned general purpose rights, but now I need to pay for you. So if I want to deploy that, one of the things is, what are we going to work as agreement is how much you're going to charge me for those seats or whatever.
Right.
Once again, it's what did we put in the contract.
Right. Someone asked, can Navy facilities be used for testing? We covered
absolutely
labs. Yeah. So again, please feel free to leave your questions here. I'm going to wrap this up. We've been going, about 25 minutes.
Okay.
If you have questions, leave them here. We will address them. I'll type them up, and Ms. Smith will get back to you, and we'll leave it right here in the comment section on the Facebook Live.
Okay.
Again, tune in. I think we need to talk about, you said the tech transfer, right? I think that's another thing we can really address there. If you haven't, look at the outreach events. Go to Navy, SBIR.com. We have small business, .navy.mil. Let's see. Oh, one last one. Oh, this is a good one. Does SBIR utilize OTAs? If not, is there a plan to?
Well, I'll answer it this way. We haven't, but we have a plan to use those. They're coming out in the next solicitation.
Right. Okay. Very well. All right, folks. Again, please leave your comments here, and we'll see you at the next Facebook Live. It'll be, I believe, we're going with the Office of Acquisition Integrity Office, and we'll talk about suspension debarment. We got subcontracting coming up. We may tackle category management, so we've got some big things coming up. All right. Thank you. And
Thanks
thanks for tuning in. You can also view this video on our Facebook page, and you can go to our YouTube page, and I'll leave that here in the comments section for you. Thank you.